Welcome everybody to English with Matt and Mark. Today we're going to be talking about our teaching experiences. So here in the studio I have teacher Matt with me. So welcome, Matt.
Hello, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. It's not like we work together every single day, but we might. It's great to actually finally have time to sit down and hear more about your actual teaching journey, because that's not our usual banter in the staff room.
Yeah, I'm very excited to share that with you and everyone who's listening. And if this inspires or helps at least one teacher, that'll be great.
So my first question, probably obvious one, why did you decide to become an English teacher?
Well, the short answer is the weather in Winnipeg. It was a January morning. It was like minus 35 degrees Celsius or something like that. And I woke up and I said, I'm done with this. And I looked online and I said, what can I do that can get me to a hot country? And, after minutes of searching, become an English teacher was one of the main jobs that was there. And I just kind of went down that rabbit hole and explored that. And yeah, here I am.
Okay, yeah. I'm sure some of our listeners, if they've ever been to Canada, maybe they can relate. Because I used to have a friend who also was Canadian, and he went to Japan for the same reason.
So he went to Japan to avoid the cold.
Yeah, same thing. I think he was from Quebec, so I think similar vibes where he had to escape that terrible weather.
It's definitely cold there as well.
Yeah. Canadians running away from the cold. Yes. So you're you're running away from the cold. How did you secure your first job, and what was the first country you made it to on your teaching journey?
Yeah, so I looked at hot countries like Mexico and, any place in South America. However, the pay wasn't so good. So I started to look at Korea, Japan, and then this country called Singapore that I knew nothing about. And after I got my TEFL, this is a few months after the fact. After I got my TEFL, I just spread my resume everywhere. And the first call I got back was from Sean in Singapore, and he interviewed me and my girlfriend at the time. And he said, yeah, you got the job, but you got to be here in 10 days. So basically uprooted my entire life in 10 days. And it was a 1-year plan, but now I'm going on year 15.
So there was a girlfriend involved at the beginning as well?
I did come to Singapore initially with an ex-girlfriend.
Oh, and she was also there to teach?
Yeah, so we were hired as a team. I guess the school needed two teachers, and we got the job. And then, yeah, like I said, within 10 days, I closed my bank accounts, I quit my job, flew here, and just stayed forever.
You have that adventurous spirit. You're like, time to get on a plane, leave Canada behind.
I think so, and I think, well, that wasn't the intention to be gone forever. It was a 1-year plan. But I think you know me, and I think if I make a decision, I just make it and do it. And I've been doing that my whole life, and I think that was one of the bigger decisions I've made. But it was also one of the best.
Well, you say one of the best, but I'm sure it wasn't always just smooth sailing, right? Were there any hiccups along the way or any challenges you faced at the beginning?
Yeah, of course. Money was an issue. When I first came over, I had no idea what the teaching market was or what the salary I should be commanding was. So I think the first few months I was pretty broke. I remember the day before my first paycheck here in Singapore, didn't have $1 in my bank account, and I walked into a McDonald's, and luckily I had like $7 on my EasyLink card. and I was able to get a double cheeseburger for dinner, and then I got paid the next day, and then, thankfully, I started to save and make some money.
Okay, yeah, so things started to look up over time.
Yes.
Wow, but so you're just kind of thrown into teaching as a way to get over here to Singapore.
Yes.
So how was that first day, first week being an English teacher for the first time?
Yeah, good question. So I arrived on a Friday night, and I had to teach on Monday morning. And I don't know if any of you out there have ever taken a TEFL or a TESOL, but they don't prepare you at all for the classroom. So I remember going into the school on the Friday, and just my boss Sean was like, okay, you're gonna teach the present simple to a pre-intermediate class on Monday. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, that sounds really awesome. What's pre-intermediate? What's present simple? And I think the look on his face was shock, but he was pretty confident. He was like, you know what, you have the personality, I'm sure you'll be fine, just go in there and wing it. So literally zero training. I think I was telling you earlier that I was writing all in capital letters on the whiteboard the first day, and one student was like, teacher, why are you writing in capital letters? And I didn't have an answer for that, so I just started writing in capital and small letters.
Yeah, so you're kind of thrown into a whole new world. And yeah, I think at the beginning sometimes there is that feeling that the students actually do know more than you.
Oh, at first,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that, they knew way more English than I did. I didn't know what a past participle was, or conjugating a verb to the past simple, because we didn't learn that in Canada. So the first year was just me teaching myself English and how to get that across to a non-native speaker.
Okay, and part of that process, what was the most difficult thing for you? If there was one thing you would want to highlight or point out?
During the teaching process,
from zero to first year in.
I think I had the charisma, I think I had the personality to teach, but it was the knowledge. It was learning the grammar points, learning to break those down, in a way that students could understand, because it has nothing to do with me. It took me 1 second to understand it, but I think the challenge was getting them to understand it. So my students bought me a t-shirt at the end of my first year, and it said, both are okay. Now, obviously I didn't wear that because of the other connotations that phrase might conjure up. But the reason they bought that for me is because I said that all the time. They were like, Matt, which one is correct? And I was like, both are okay. And I said that so often that they bought me a t-shirt that said both are okay. And I thought that was pretty funny, but it's a nice summary of my first year as a teacher, because I was just winging it and just kind of lying as I went.
Has your philosophy changed at all over time? Are both still okay?
Well, yeah, in several instances, both are always okay. Especially, I speak American English, but here in Singapore, we teach British English. So, present perfect and past simple, to me, those are identical at times. So I would say the philosophy has not changed, but maybe it's progressed.
And now you're quite a few years in, right? A couple years into teaching.
Yeah, 15 years.
15 years. So in those 15 years, do you have any specific role model or mentor that helped you out? Or do you have any specific resources, anything from books or mentors that kind of helped guide you along the way?
Tough question. The book that saved me, or the two books that saved me, were by Raymond Murphy, English in Use. So the red one, Essential Grammar in Use, and then the blue one, I think it's just called Grammar in Use. And I was basically poring over those before class to find examples to break down the grammar in an easy to understand way. So Mr. Murphy, if you're out there, thank you. You kind of held my hand through the first year of teaching English, and I still use those examples today. I design my whiteboard that way. I lay out everything that way. So basically, from year 1 to year 15, I've been using the same examples.
So other than the actual English, the grammar, the vocabulary, those kinds of things, have there been any other types of issues you've had in the classroom? Maybe student-based or other teachers or anything like that you've had to kind of learn or deal with or learn from those experiences?
Yeah, I have thousands of stories. I think the teacher thing, if you want, a microcosm of the world, join an ESL school, because you have teachers from everywhere, different personalities, different backgrounds, and of course you're gonna get along with some of them, and you're not gonna get along with others. But I think that's indicative of every workplace. So teachers, I have a ton of stories. Maybe we'll save that for another podcast. But I do have one, probably the craziest story from a student standpoint was we had this Mongolian guy. He was kind of this, he looked like a rugby player. He was huge. He was just one of those thick, strong guys. And he liked me, and he was one of my students. But he came in one morning, and he was hammered. He had a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of vodka with him, or maybe both. And he was walking around to all the other classrooms and flirting with the girls. And these are adult students, just as a disclaimer. Long story short, basically one of my colleagues and a good friend of mine, Steve, he was a police officer back in London. And he had the guy up against the wall, and he just looked at me and he said, "Matty, I'm going to take him down." And I was like, okay. And then he slammed him down to the ground, and the police came, and he was deported. And I think that was, not that was a particularly challenging thing as a teacher, but it was definitely an interesting moment as a person.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Seeing one of your students get arrested and deported, that would make the list.
Yeah, he was a good guy. I mean, maybe not after a night of drinking vodka.
Yeah, but actually, going back to, maybe I'll focus on the teacher angle. You mentioned that there's teachers from like all walks of life, all different backgrounds who come and go in the ESL profession. Is there anything you've noticed about what makes a good ESL teacher?
Yeah, personality's king. I think if you have the ability to connect with a student on a personal level, anyone can teach grammar. I think anyone can kind of teach vocabulary. But I think if you can connect with a student on a personal level, on a one-to-one level, you get to know them, they get to know you. You kind of become their friend, especially for adult students. I think that goes a long way. So if I were to ever hire an English teacher, the qualifications aren't necessarily that important. The experience isn't necessarily that important. I would say that their personality, if they're a good person, if they're friendly, if they're kind, if I would have a beer with them, I think that would be my secret to success. I think if you're going to teach.
Yeah, be a good person. Yeah, and yeah, I like that idea of having that sense of connection with the students. I think that goes a very long way in our profession. And speaking of career or profession, if someone wanted to become an ESL teacher or wanted to come and teach abroad, what kind of advice would you give them?
So I think there's two things. If you want to teach, obviously you have to get a certificate of some kind, TEFL, TESOL, CELTA. Honestly, in my opinion, they're the same. And they're not even that important. They just help you get your foot in the door. But I think if you're going to move to a new country, you got to be open, and you got to open your mind, and you got to realize that you're not in your country anymore. The food's going to be different. The people are going to be different. And I think that just switching your mind to being open and being accepting of that new culture. Don't bring your culture with you, kind of, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think just, they say when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? And I think it's age-old advice, and it still works today in 2021.
Yeah, well, yeah, Matt, thanks for sitting down with us. It was interesting to hear your perspective on your journey and the ESL life. We got a glimpse of the ESL life that you've led so far. For everybody listening, again, thank you for tuning in. Come back next time, and we'll have some more teachers we can interview at the ULC English Club.
Well, yeah, Mark, thanks for having me. If anyone's listening here, obviously Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you can find us there. You can just search Teachers Mark and Matt, or you can look for myself on, Matthew Fast on Facebook, and I would love to connect. And if you have any questions, hit me up.